This is the first video, but we're gonna make many, many more and get them a lot more detailed. This is just to get you started this week. These are essentially our 3 levels of jumping. Sled, penultimate, max jumps, and then you see here super maximal plyometrics. What does this mean? Sled, let's go take a look. If you use a sled, part of jumping is putting force into the ground, because you have to cover distance before you jump. You can't just waddle up to a jump. So as you know, as I'll go into, there's a push phase of a jump where you're putting force into the ground to open up, so you can directly work on that. But you see this, you could start, this would be the most knee pain guy, and you could gradually get stronger, and you could even get, I can take someone with terrible knees and give me a few minutes and I can get them working on the lowest form of jumping, pushing. So when you open up to jump, you have this push step right there. But then you have to absorb all that force, and then you have to punch all that force through the ball of the foot. So all this force comes into the knees. So similarly, and someone could start really light, and you can gradually get into it and be working on the absorption and actually be punching the ground. So by pushing, by getting the push, and by punching the ground, you're transitioning your weight room strength onto the playing surface, and you're getting better at jumping. So when in doubt, if you have knee pain, for your 2 jump days, you would do jump day number 1 would just be working on the sled. Jump day number 2 would be penultimate. Pen means almost, ultimate means the end. So by penultimate, we're referring to talking about on a jump, we're talking about just the last 2 steps, which has its own drill for 2 foot and 1 foot. And just by working on those last 2 steps, they're the most important 2 steps. You can become a hell of a jumper just by working on those 2 steps. So for 2 foot jumping, it's very similar, or very simple. You have your push step, so I'm pushing into the ground that way to open up. And then you have your punch step, which is going to be the same leg. So if my right leg push, punch, that's your 2 foot drill. Now you would do it right leg first, push, punch. You would do it left leg first, push, punch. And with 2 foot jumping, I'm trying to extend my legs and trying to get very upright when I jump. For 1 foot jumping, it's a different focus. So when in doubt, sled on your first session, penultimate work on your second session, and your 2 foot is very simple. You just got to remember those. Push, punch. That's all you have to focus on. And then for 1 foot, you're just focusing on the speed of the last 2 steps. And again, it's just the penultimate, just the last 2. So for 1 foot jumping, it would be once my back foot leaves the floor, how fast can I take those last 2 steps? With the other one. So that's all you focus on, is speed of steps. And you'll see that this jump will carry you more forward. So that's the simplicity of it. But then max jump would break down to, say we're talking about a rim, say you have a 10-foot rim, would break down to touching the rim, would then break down to dunking a small object, and then like actual dunking but off an alley-oop so that you still have full arm swing in, like so you practice throwing yourself a lob or have a friend stand and toss it up. That way you can still approach and get a maximal jump. And then you would eventually have dunking off the dribble. And this whole subject breaks down a lot of maximal jumping. So if you don't have knee pain, you would spend your number 1 session would now be working on your penultimate step. So on Wednesday, penultimate step. And your weekend session would be doing max jumps. So you're either doing sled on Wednesday, penultimate on Saturday, or penultimate on Wednesday, jump on Saturday, based on whether you have or don't have knee pain. These will break down. We'll keep you posted on exact sets and reps. This whole subject breaks down a ton because there's a lot of different ways to dunk depending on which hand you dunk with, or two hands dictates how you land. So we have a lot to do to keep your body balanced and to develop full jumping skill. But this is the base. And then the last word, supra, so we're talking beyond maximum. So if you just do max jumping, that's already a ton of force. And the reason max jumps, so we're talking about touching, you might as well talk about, max touching versus just the jump itself. The reason this is more force is because as soon as I go to reach towards something, it puts my body at a different angle and makes me likely to land one leg first before the other. So basically, the reason this is more force is because of the landings, not necessarily just because of the jump itself. Although, for the jump itself, it does limit you to a degree by only being able to do those last two steps. So this is limited first because of the last two steps, and second because your landing is going to be much more controlled than flying in and touching or dunking something when it comes to the landing. Supra means beyond. So now, if we were to take your maximum, say your maximum is 40-inch vertical or something, and jump off of it and jump when you hit the ground. Well, now that I'm trying to take that force and not just land, but try to jump when I hit the ground, now we're simulating, we're actually creating forces beyond just dunking itself. So we're not even getting into this right now. You just understand that it exists. And for 1 foot jumping, you would basically take a 1 foot jump and jump and jump. So bounding is taking a jump and landing into a jump. So we'd have bounding and depth jumps would be for the guy who's beyond bulletproof. And so he would actually he could have 1 day max touching and 1 day doing super maximal plyometrics. But until your form is incredible, this is going to be more of a waste of time, and you're going to jump higher just with this progression. And until your knee pain is gone, all this is a waste, and you're actually going to jump highest just with this progression.